You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com. And streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Castle After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Castle After Show.
Love the music. Hey, what's up, everybody? Bing is for doing, and we are doing another great episode for AFTERBUZZ TV for Castle Season 5, Episode 5, Probable Cause. Go Giants. Had to do that really quick. I'm Bamm Ericsen. I'm your host, along with
Paige Sullivan.
Okay, so it was a great episode. We've been gone for a week, and so
Yes.
it's good to be back. And we were really excited for this particular episode because in the previews, it had showed that Castle had murdered someone. And so we didn't really kind of know how it was going to go. But this episode, what did you think?
It was intense. It was definitely something that got me thinking the entire time, and it was kind of gut-wrenching. You know, you feel Beckett's pain, and you see that Castle's really scared, and everybody's trying to, be truthful to their friendship, but also to their job. It was very intense. I don't think I've had a Castle episode like this before, where I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Yeah, and so what we normally do is we kind of break down each of the storylines, but because everything was based around this whole murder, let's just dive right into it and just kind of give a recap of what happened. So there was a lady by the name of Tessa Horton who Tessa Horton who was murdered, and that's how it starts. And so she's murdered, and it appears that that Castle wound up becoming the killer. But what was really interesting is when they were doing all of the details, when they go into the house, the murderer, he was very meticulous. He took his time with the murder, and he did things that someone who would know, it was very planned.
Yes.
And so when you go back and think about the episode, things sort of really kind of, when you kind of think about it, okay, that could be Castle, that could be a Castle. What did you think?
Well, it was confusing to me because it was so meticulous that if it was Castle and he had taken the time and the care to clean the entire apartment out, wipe his hard drive, wipe his cell phone, wipe her hard drives, make sure nobody knew that he had any contact with her, then why would he be careless enough to leave behind prints?
Right.
On any form. He wouldn't have had that option at all.
Right, and there was also no force entry, and apparently whoever killed Tessa had to have known who she was.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the whole thing starts off, this was a serial killer. This is somebody who knows what he's doing. He planned something for a long time, and he followed through with every little step. But then we think, oh, Castle's prints show up, Castle never thinking he's being dumb. He touched the crime scene and he should never do that. So it must have been a mistake.
Right, and even when he was asked that, they were like, he was like, well, I don't think I did, but if I did, clearly he wasn't thinking that he had anything to do with this. It was not until when Castle and Beckett spoke to the best friend, and she was secretly seeing someone, and the description was that he was very rich and handsome, and that she never met him. And so then once the prince comes back, the prince came back as a richer Castle.
Yes, and so not only that, this gentleman took her to dinner. He kind of wine and dined her. He bought her jewelry, and these are all things. At first, when you're listening to it, don't seem to be a big factor in the murder, but the more you go, the more clues keep piling on for Castle.
Yeah.
So this episode the earring. So they say, oh, this gentleman bought her jewelry. Let's scour the apartment and see what we can find. Maybe we can pull a print. Maybe we can find out where it was bought. And so they do. I mean, they find an earring, and unfortunately, the prints don't come out. You can't find out who the prints are, but they trace it back to who bought it. And there's no name, fake name, cashier's check. But the video footage shows a gentleman who looks almost identical to Castle. So it's just one thing after the other. So now his fingerprints are there, and there is jewelry that he supposedly bought, and on the same day he took that same amount of money out of his bank account.
Yeah.
And they never really explained why he did that. He never gave a reason to why he took that money out, but it looks like it corresponds to the fact that he was buying this girl Tessa some earrings.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of it's a snowball effect. It's just one thing after the other. And
but the cool thing about it is after he's questioned about the whole door thing, Beckett defends him, and she was like, she says to Esposito and Ryan, the prince, it's clearly a mistake. It's not him. And so at the time, Esposito didn't know why Beckett was defending him so much. And then, well, we'll get into that in a second. But after that, then there was the whole thing with the neighbor and the 745, and they thought that Lloyd, the guy, her boss, thought that Lloyd had something to do with this. And so it was said that she was seen with the guy 7:45 at p.m. that one of the neighbors saw that. And then when Lloyd was brought into question, then he said that he had saw her that morning at work. And then Beckett starts to realize, well, if this guy is so meticulous,
why would he be caught going to her apartment?
Why would he be caught to be going to the apartment? And why, when they questioned his alibi and where was he at 7:45 at night, he didn't really have an answer. And for someone who's very, very meticulous, they have an answer for everything. Right. And then it was something what Castle said that maybe he's so meticulous that he wouldn't think that he would get caught.
So he didn't plan ahead to have the answers.
Yeah, so he didn't plan ahead. And then finally, Beckett starts to kind of wonder, like, it wasn't a wonder for me where maybe she thought he did it, but she couldn't help notice after he gave that response, What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was kind of confusing because you see Beckett very torn. There's so much evidence against Castle, and the things he's even saying, they make it so that you feel like he could have done this.
Absolutely,
he could have done this, and for her, she's falling in love with him. I don't think they've said "I love you" yet, and I would.
She's complete. She hasn't fallen. She's in. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping she would drop the L bomb this episode, but she didn't. And I really thought she would. But I think, when you love somebody, you never want to see the worst of them. You only believe in the best parts of them, and so hopefully, she can figure out why all these things are leading to Castle. Why, she can't figure out where are they missing a piece. And it just keeps getting worse from there. I mean, they go through his computer.
Well, they find his financials first.
Well, they find his financials and see that he took the cashier's check out for the same amount as the earrings. And then they proceed to go through his computer to see, fine, go through his computer. Esposito and Ryan are saying, we have to do this. If it was anybody else, we have to do this.
But also, that's also when Ryan broke the news to Esposito and says, hey, there's something that I have to tell you.
Right.
And so he says, and he's like, well, why didn't, Esposito wants to know, well, why didn't they tell us about the relationship? And then, Ryan was like, well, it's not our business, and it would just probably make it awkward.
Yeah, and he mentions, they probably didn't want the captain getting involved because you're not supposed to date coworkers and things of that nature. So that's probably why they kept it private. And it's kind of nice that's the way it came out, because it came out at a dire time.
Yeah.
And it's not the main focus, It's out. Everybody knows. Castle and Beckett are dating. Ryan and Esposito know. And now it's over. I thought it would be a whole big to-do. But the way they did it this episode was just they slipped it right in, and now it's over.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because, I mean, if you think about it, what can Esposito say? I mean, they're together.
Yeah,
it's not like he's never, messed with somebody.
Yeah,
And so, again, I thought that was the perfect way, and for them not to make a really big deal about it. Okay, so they're messing together. Okay, now let's get back to work.
It's not even that. It's like they're messing together, but now let's prove that Castle didn't commit murder.
Yeah.
There's this thing that is looming over their heads. It's so much more important than the fact that Beckett
Well-
and Castle have been sleeping together.
Well, it's not so much that he's did the murder, but now
How to prove he didn't.
they have to prove, because Esposito, he really was looking at the evidence and he was like, okay, this looks like Castle did it, and I know he's my friend, but Esposito really just wanted to do his job and find out what's going on. But at the same time, he couldn't overlook the fact that all this evidence was going to Castle versus Beckett, who she didn't really want to recognize that any of this stuff looks like it's going toward her boyfriend.
Right, and so after they find the footage of Castle, they go to his apartment. They get a search warrant, and they have to search it. And they find another piece of evidence, which is a bag full of all the things that would have been at the crime scene. The barbed wire, a bloody shirt that matches Tessa's blood, and things of that nature. So it's kind of, you're wondering, how did this get in Castle's apartment? Why is this here? Who would frame him? And who framed him, I never thought would have framed him. I was not expecting that at all. And so...
But you remember the very last thing that they found when they were looking?
In his apartment?
Yeah. Was it the earring, or what was exactly that? There was like an item.
Oh, when he kept asking what they were looking at, it was that backpack full of
yeah,
stuff.
that's right.
So
yeah.
it was the backpack full of stuff, and he kept saying, "Guys, what is it? What did you find? What did you find?" And he genuinely looks concerned in his face, and you're wondering, he doesn't even know what's there. And so for him to not be like, "Oh crap, like they found it," it's more like, what did you find that's pinning me to this murder? Because now at this point, I think Castle's convinced that somebody's framing him. And so now they have to arrest him and take him down to the station.
Now, is that believable that he wouldn't know that that bag was there? And particularly in that area. It's not like it was in a closet, it was on top somewhere under the bed, or it was in a very visible place. It was like underneath where all of like the books like the bookshelves.
The bookshelf.
Yeah, and being that he writes books and things like that, you would think that Castle would have recognized or seen that area where the bag was hidden.
Well, it's his bag. That's the thing. It was Castle's bag, so he knew the bag was there. But the murderer must have come and put the stuff in the bag.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's that out of reach, because this murderer obviously had quite a large access to Castle's life. He had his prints, he had his bank account, he had his computer, he had his cell phone, he had everything that, would lead everything back to Castle. And so it doesn't shock me that he had access to something that he knows is normal in Castle's apartment, but that he can make another, piece of evidence. But when they go back, they have to check. They still don't believe that Castle did it. They say, somebody put this in Castle's apartment.
And the fact that Johnson, she said, I don't like Castle, but I'm having a hard time believe that, he would do something like this.
Yeah, and it shows that these people believe in him. Even the captain, she doesn't like him really. She doesn't like him working there. She doesn't like his way of doing things, but she doesn't believe he did this. And so she wants to help them just as much as any of them.
You know who believes in us?
Who?
iTunes. iTunes believes in us. So let me tell you a little bit about iTunes. If you go to iTunes, under AfterBuzz TV, we have a plethora of shows that you guys can download for free. You can listen in your car, in the shower, on your radio, on your iPods, at work. You can do it, download it. It's for free. And it really helps the network here. We're a very growing building, a network, and it will really do us a great justice if you guys would just go to iTunes and download. And then also don't forget that there is this cool podcast app, and what it does is it organizes all of your subscriptions. So because we have over 50 plus shows here, that's pretty hard to organize. So you download the podcast app, and it organizes all of your subscriptions. So whether if it's Castle, if it's Heart of Dixie, or if it's Scandal, it organizes them all separately, and it keeps it into a nice gray file. So make sure that you go to iTunes, and also make sure that you download, rate, and comment. Tell us what you think. We hope that it's good things that you think about, but just tell us what you think, rate it and download it, and please tell a friend. All right.
All right.
Okay. So continue. Go ahead.
Yes. So the captain's on their side here, and so that gets me kind of in a positive thinking mode. When I was watching this, the whole time I was really concerned that Castle was going to be going to jail for this, or something drastic was going to happen.
I never thought that.
No, see, it was just too hard to prove wrong, this episode. I felt like it was too hard to take all of this evidence and prove that Castle didn't do it. It just didn't. I didn't know how it was going to happen. Everything led to Castle.
Yeah, it did, really.
And the DA was ready to, put him down in lockdown, and, that's kind of when the twist came, and Beckett's starting to get really upset. She doesn't believe it happened, but she finds, when they went through his computer, they found a bunch of emails, and it said that he was supposedly having an affair with this girl, but he couldn't tell the girl.
But now let's go back to the conversation. Let's talk about who Beckett was speaking to when she was giving this information. So Beckett and Lainey are best friends, and we don't really see them often where it's outside of work.
Yeah.
And that was a genuine best friend moment where the two of them are sitting down. They're both crying. She's crying in support of her best friend. Beckett is crying, and they're having a genuine conversation about her problems in her life. And again, Lainey obviously knows what's going on now. And again, that was not the focus. The focus was what's at stake, and it was Castle.
And it was crazy to watch, because it wasn't so much that she still didn't believe that he murdered somebody. When she's having that conversation with Lainey, she doesn't believe that Castle murdered somebody, but I think she's almost more hurt by the fact that if these emails are real, then he betrayed what they had, you know? And it almost seemed like a girl who was really hurt by a boyfriend, talking to her best friend and saying, I don't know how this could have happened. I mean, it was 2 weeks after we got together, and you could see the pain, and she's so upset, but she says, I believe him.
Yeah, she said that he's not this.
Yeah.
But then Lainey said, are you sure?
And that's where they all are, though. I mean, Esposito, Ryan, Beckett, they all believe he didn't do it, but are they sure? Like, how do we know? There's plenty of people who kill other people who the people in their daily lives would never, ever suspect it.
And being that they do crimes
for a job,
although they don't want to believe that Castle did it, they do have to kind of ask themselves, are you sure? Because there's many people who you would never think would kill or murder someone, and being that they do this every day, you have to think about it.
It's hard because not only are they testing their friendships now, but they're testing their skills at their job. If they don't fulfill their duties as detectives and follow every lead and look at all of the evidence, then they're not doing the justice by the girl who was murdered. And so if Castle did do it, they have to pursue it. But they also they're pursuing, but they're trying so hard to find anything, just something that they can hold on to that proves him innocent. Yeah. And that doesn't come until Tyson shows up.
Right, yeah.
And that was intense.
Yeah, so Castle's in jail. No one's there. And Tyson shows up. That was a little unbelievable, because isn't there always someone at the precinct 24 hours?
Yes, but he thought of everything. He had the layout. He had the layout of the place. He knew where all the cameras were and how everything worked. So I think, he just blended in. He had the outfit. He must have just looked like a new guard. Yeah. Somebody who maybe the night guard wasn't familiar with, didn't ask questions. And
so he's been following Castle. He knows about his affair with Beckett. He's been to the house. He's seen his daughter, his mom. He has been
in his life. It's so creepy.
Yeah, it's extremely creepy to know that someone has been doing that and you have no clue that someone's following you.
Yeah, and in every part of your personal life. He says, I've seen you making love to Beckett. I mean, that is crazy. That is, a very intimate moment between two people, and there is this mass murderer watching and studying your every move, all in an attempt at revenge. I mean, he wants revenge against Castle and Beckett for what they've done to him. He wanted to disappear, fall off the face of the earth, so that he could move somewhere else and keep killing elsewhere, and they didn't give that to him, so now he's trying to achieve that.
Yeah, and then so he finally he tells Beckett about what's going on, and she's like, just like a girlfriend. She's like, baby, I got your back.
Yeah, she says this is the first thing that's made sense this whole time.
Yeah.
She says it's crazy, and he says, oh, you believe me? She says, yeah, it's the first thing that's made sense.
And then so they go to Johnson, and they tell Johnson what's going on, and so she asks for a delay with the booking and everything, and so they finally do that, and then they find surveillance on Tyson, or they go to look for surveillance on Tyson, which they couldn't find any. So then what they do is they assume that Tessa had the boyfriend that she the best friend referenced that Tessa had a boyfriend that she didn't know. And so then they go and assume that Tyson must be the boyfriend of Tessa.
Yeah, they do. And I don't think it was ever answered who was the boyfriend.
Yeah,
I don't
it was
think
not. Yeah,
it wasn't Tyson.
No, it was
and
not.
It wasn't Castle. But so, Tyson tells Castle when he saw him the night before that he's going to have him killed when he gets transferred.
Yeah.
But so when he's getting taken to be transferred by the two guards and the elevator door shut, my heart kind of sank. Like, Castle is in some serious trouble right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen to him. But then Beckett turns around and she sees two guards who were supposed to pick up Castle, but the others were imposters. And that made me think, he's not transferring him somewhere to be killed. He's going to kill him himself.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case.
That was not the case, so go ahead. What was the case?
So Beckett finds out, that they were imposters. She kind of does some research, and now Castle's a wanted man. They think he escaped, It's not so much his life's in danger, it's he escaped. And he had said something to Beckett when she came to him after Tyson, and he said, last time you were putting cuffs on me was in your bed or in your bedroom, and the first time you ever put cuffs on me was in the library. And so she goes to the library and she finds Castle. So Castle did escape. And he doesn't say how or who or what. He just says, somebody owed me a favor.
Yeah, and how he had a good lawyer. And so, again, because he's a celebrity and he knows people.
Yeah, he got out of it. It was intense, though. I mean, for that split second, I was really in shock that, they got him. I mean, there's nothing they can do to get him back now. And when Castle had really done it himself, I was kind of proud of him. Like, way to go. I didn't expect that at all.
But what was also interesting in regards to the whole library situation, so once they're at the library, then he finds this book. And the book had something to do with the casting.
I think it was a magazine or
the
something.
Magazine that was at the library.
And it had a casting notice.
He had a casting notice. And so what he found was that there was a casting for, like, lookalikes. And so
for author lookalikes,
for
novelists.
Novelists. And so they go down the list, and of course there's one for Richard Castle.
Yeah, and so they follow that lead.
Yeah.
And they do find the Richard Castle lookalike.
Yeah.
Who does look like Richard Castle, but not really, but at a first glance or from the side, maybe. You didn't think so?
Not really. Maybe could be a brother. Especially like when you look at the camera, that was really Castle. I believe that was really Castle.
You think so?
Yes, because that guy.
You think when they filmed it, behind the scenes, it was really Castle?
Yeah,
but
he didn't look that much like him, and even Castle makes his joke where he's like, "Now that I'm looking at you up close, we
look nothing alike."
We look nothing alike. Which everyone always says that, if someone says, "Hey, you look like so and so,"
and then you see them and you're like,
and you're like, no, I don't look like that person."
Right. I think also though, whether or not it was Castle who was really there, maybe it was the angle or whatnot, but they find him, and it proves again that Castle wasn't buying those earrings.
Yeah.
It's one step in the right direction for Castle, and so they keep following this, and they follow it back to the mailbox that he sent information to and the fake name, and they used a fake name, a French name. Serial killer.
But before that, so when they talked to the guy who was a lookalike, he said the reason that he was at the jewelry store was because he was doing a reality show.
Yes.
And they showed the picture of Tyson, and the lookalike said, yeah, he was the producer of this reality show. So.
Exactly. And so they trace that back to the mailbox, the P.O. box, and the bank account or whatnot. And it was the name was JV were the initials. I don't know how to pronounce the name. It was French, but he was a French serial killer, and Castle knew that because obviously this is what Castle does for a living. He writes about murders, and so they pursue that, and they look through her calendar, and they try and find any sign of that name, and she had a site meeting with him.
Yeah.
So all 4 of them show up at the site where they were supposed to meet and find all of these pictures and a hand that had the prints of Castle, and that was just insane. If I found that on myself, that somebody had been taking, I'd be beyond freaked out. I probably wouldn't sleep for years. I mean, this guy was in every aspect of Castle's life, and he had pictures of everything he did, and had so much stuff that he could put on Castle, basically. So that was pretty intense. But if you like any of our other shows, you should go check us out. AfterBuzz TV has a huge fall lineup. We have 50 shows, a lot of different shows. I know myself, I'm doing a couple CW shows. We're doing Beauty and the Beast and Heart of Dixie, and you're also doing some as well, right, Bamm?
I am. I do Vegas, I do 90210, and I do Castle.
Yeah, so...
I mean, Scandal.
Well, you do Castle.
Yeah.
We're doing Castle right now. But if you are interested in anything else, we have comedy. We have, the love stories like Beauty and the Beast. Reality TV show, obviously. Everybody's obsessed these days. So check us out. Make sure to go to AfterBuzzTV.com. All right. Well,
All right.
yeah, so now we're getting kind of to the nitty-gritty.
Yes, this is where it got really, really good. And so, do you want to...
Yeah, so, they find all this stuff. And that kind of absolves Castle. All charges dropped. He might have to go through a little bit of court for
the escaping.
For escaping, being an escaped prisoner. So that's kind of funny. But, otherwise he'll be fine. But Castle and him are leaving. Castle and Beckett are leaving. I apologize. And they're on a bridge. And they're waiting for a ferry to go through or something of that nature. And they're kind of having this intimate moment.
Yeah, they're having a great intimate moment. He's like, thank you for believing in me. And she's like, she's saying things to him. And right as Castle is getting ready to respond back, then bam, they're ambushing her, hitting from the back.
Yeah, by a car. And I almost thought they were going to be driven off the bridge.
I thought so too, yeah.
I think Beckett must have cut the wheel, though. I think she cut the wheel and they turned and hit this side of the bridge. And
probably, yeah.
It's Tyson. Lo and behold, it's Tyson. And so, you have to think he was planning this. He knew they were going to be here. Otherwise, how would he have found them?
He ambushed them so hard. I was very surprised that Beckett was able to get out the car, and obviously, she's very upset because of what, he's done, all the things that has happened in the past. And then on top of that, Tyson tries to take out her man, not just her coworker now, but her man. And so, she probably took like 8-9 shots.
And the intensity in her face.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Yeah. Props to her for that acting, because she was terrifying. You could see the rage in her face. She wanted to kill him so badly.
Yeah.
And then she goes up to see if he's dead, and he whacks her in the face. He had to have a bulletproof vest of some sort on for him not to die. She fired shots, and it's not like she's an amateur.
Yeah, that is true. But then we also didn't see the reaction of him when she was firing. Was she just firing at the car?
Yeah.
We don't know where she was firing, but she's a cop, so she's just not gonna.
You
would expect her to. And then he gets out of the car and he chokes her and throws her down on the ground, and he thinks that Castle is in the car, and Castle's not, and Castle goes from behind, and then you can look at the vengeance on his face, and now he shoots Tyson until he falls over into the bridge.
Yeah, and you see the water kind of bubbling around where he fell in.
Yeah.
And you watch that for a little bit, and then they cut to them looking for his body. Yeah, and they can't find it.
Yeah, where it's been hours and hours later. Now it's morning time, and they can't find his body. Now, what I thought was interesting is Castle said that, he's disappeared so that he can start killing again. And
he got what he wanted.
And then and then Beckett's response was, "You shot him, he's dead."
Well, because that's the way. This is typical Beckett and Castle. Beckett thinks logically. He's dead. He fell down there. No body was found. We didn't see anybody swim out. That's case closed. It's over. And, Castle, he's a novelist. He likes to think up these stories, and he's thinking, he told me he wants to disappear. He told me he wants to drop off the face of the earth where nobody will look for him.
I do get that, but in this instance, I was a little surprised at Beckett's response. This was not the Golden Gate Bridge. This was a very small bridge. And for them not to be able to find his body, she should I would think that she should have some kind of hesitance to believe that he's really dead.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm on Castle's side. I don't think he's dead because
Yeah.
I think in the case of where Beckett was shooting at him, Castle was shooting at him, I think he must have had a bulletproof vest on of some sort.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, Castle really isn't somebody who uses a gun
Yeah.
very often, if at all. And so
And he shot him in the chest area.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
for him to fall off that bridge, it is an easy escape. It is an easy way out for him to achieve exactly what he wanted. Castle's saying, he planned this the whole time. I don't think he planned it the whole time. I think it was a thing of convenience because if Castle never escaped, then what was the plan?
Yeah.
I think this was something that worked for Tyson. He got them alone. He got what he needed.
But I think he also knew that Castle would escape or not.
You think so?
Or some. Maybe not escape, but maybe he thought
Delay.
that he would delay it or do something so that he wouldn't. I think Tyson knew that Castle would, by any means, being that he works with the New York police, that he would find a way in order to not go to jail.
I think you might be right, but I don't know about that because I really feel like it was all circumstantial that's how it worked out. Because I didn't see Castle doing that. I didn't think he had the resources. And that's how Beckett actually caught on to it because somebody said, somebody who has the resources to do this. Tyson had to have the resources to sneak him out. And she thought, Castle has the resources.
Yeah.
And so it's all circumstantial, things you don't see, things that don't seem like they would happen, and yet they do. So I don't know. I mean, this was a crazy episode. And I mean, we could get into it in predictions, but I think he'll be coming back. I think we'll see more of Tyson.
Well, and speaking of coming back, so the last word that Castle said when he and Beckett was having the conversation, disappear, he started killing again, and she's like, oh, you shot him, he's dead, and then he said, for now.
Yeah, and it's like a typical murder mystery,
Yeah.
like for now.
And
it's very Castle.
And he'll be back.
I think so.
And so speaking of being back, so let's go into predictions.
Yes.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
Oh.
I don't have any definitive predictions, nothing, but I do think we'll see Tyson again.
Yeah.
I think the thing will be is he will be somewhere far away. He will be in a place like Chicago or LA or something far from New York, but they're going to get dragged into it because they used to follow his case. You know what I mean? I think because they're familiar with his type of murdering and serial killing and his patterns, when it starts happening somewhere else and he starts building up a reputation somewhere else, they'll catch wind of it. And Castle will be on that. I think Castle will have his eye out for it.
I think that's great. We've already seen them in Hamptons this season. Last season they had to fly out to LA, and so I think that is a great storyline for them to have to go and travel somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think it helps with the flow of this. It's not always New York, New York, New York. It's, we're doing different things. We're chasing different leads. And I think, like last season when they were helping out the FBI and they had to go elsewhere to help out. It helps the show. It keeps the pace up.
Yeah, and with them being in existence for 5 seasons, they don't want to have things stale.
Yeah, and it would get stale if it was New York
Yeah,
all the time.
all the time.
And I get that they work in New York, and that's where their job is, but that's my prediction. I think they're going to chase him down, not in the near future.
Yeah,
Maybe even a season away, but I think it will happen.
I'm thinking toward the season finale around sweeps week, a little later next year. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And what else I'm thinking is it's time for us to wrap. So we want to thank you guys for watching another episode of Castle Season 5, Episode 5. And so I'm Bamm Ericsen. You can find me on Twitter at Bamm Ericsen. And what about you?
And I am Paige Sullivan. You can follow me on Twitter at Paige Sull, and that's PaigeSull.
All right, so thank you guys for watching. We will be back next week. It's so good to be back. And so you guys make sure that you tune in next week for Castle.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.